Leonardo got the eyes of the gods after his sister's sacrifice, and now he wants to save her. You see, Leonardo was taking a picture of his family during their vacation in New York when something strange happened. God froze time and appeared to propose a deal. He wanted to give the eyes of gods, but he needed Leonardo or his wheelchaired sister to sacrifice their eyes. Leonardo has been a coward all his life and couldn't move. Yet, his poor little sister, Michela, accepted to sacrifice her eyes so that Leonardo could get this power. She couldn't walk anyway, so she didn't need them to see if she was going to step on a Lego. When this happened, a strange gateway popped up in New York City, unleashing creatures from another world called Beyondians to wreck not only the city but the whole world. To deal with this, a mist screen formed around the city, cutting it off from the rest of the country. This big event was named the Great Collapse, but some people with special psychic abilities, known as casters, managed to stop the trouble. They made barriers to close the gateway and put an end to the chaos. After 3 years, humans and Beyondians had to learn to live together, even though things were still pretty hard. New York was now called Hellsalem's Lot, and Leonardo decided to move her. He wanted to find a cure for not only Michela's eyes but also her legs. But here, Leonardo came to learn more about his new eyes, which let him see things regular people can't. The city was still pretty violent, and he struggled because he didn't have much money. But he was getting used to a routine. Every day, he took pictures and went to Diane's diner for coffee. There's a person named Vivian who works as a barista serving coffee. She tells Leonardo to write a letter to Michela so she doesn't worry too much about him. He agrees. In his letter, he talks about his time in Hellsalem's Lot. He's getting better at dealing with fear and doesn't need Michela to protect him all the time like before. He feels like he's not worthless and weak anymore. At Diane's diner, Leonardo talks with Vivian. Her father gives him a burger when his stomach growls. He gets it in exchange for washing the dishes. Suddenly, a monkey dashes by and grabs Leonardo's camera super fast. Beyondians notice it, but regular humans like Vivian don't because it happens too quickly. This leaves Vivian confused as Leonardo chases after the monkey. He saw the monkey take his camera because of his special eyes, so he chased it down the street. While he's chasing the monkey, there's an explosion. It happens because of a bank robbery done by someone from another world. The explosion sends both Leonardo and the monkey flying into the street. After things calm down a bit, a guy named Zap steps on Leonardo's path. Zap is part of a secret group called Libra. They try to keep things balanced between different species in Hellsalem's Lot. Zap thinks Leonardo is someone else, a member named Johnny who was supposed to meet with Libra but didn't show up. Leonardo pretends to be Johnny and goes along with it. Zap brings Leonardo to Libra's HQ where he meets Klaus, the leader of Libra. Klaus also mistakes Leonardo for Johnny, but Chain, another member, corrects them. She explains that Leonardo isn't Johnny because Johnny recently died. Leonardo apologizes for pretending to be Johnny and admits that he's curious about Libra because he wants to understand his unique eyes. Just then, the king of depravity, Femt, shows up on TV. He releases a demon that's looking for its missing half because he's bored. Femt warns that gates will open every now and then, and it's a problem if the demon finds its half through a gate before they do. Klaus senses something strange happening, and a gate opens near Leonardo. Zap starts to think that maybe Leonardo is working with Femt, but Chain explains that the gate came from the monkey. Chain then goes after the monkey. Meanwhile, Klaus asks Leonardo if he saw the attack and if his eyes are connected to it. Leonardo confirms and shares the story of how he got his eyes. Zap blames Leonardo for his sister losing her eyesight, and Leonardo gets upset, explaining that he got frozen in fear, which led his sister to sacrifice her eyesight. The Hellsalem's Lot police department arrives and starts shooting at Klaus and the others, thinking they caused the problem. Klaus thinks Leonardo's eyes could be useful and offers him a job in Libra, which Leonardo accepts. As the police surround them, Klaus shows Leonardo how Libra works by defeating the police to inspire him. Then he sends Leonardo and Zap after the monkey. While they're on their way, Chain calls to tell them that the monkey is heading in their direction. This means a gate will open nearby. As the monkey goes by, the gate opens and causes a lot of destruction. Leonardo sees that Diane's diner, the place he goes for coffee, got wrecked. He promises to help Vivian, the coffee shop's owner, but then the other half of the demon shows up, and Zap shields Leonardo from its attack. Zap instructs Leonardo to take care of the monkey before the gate opens again. He uses his abilities to fight against the demon. Leonardo reaches the monkey after it gets trapped under debris. While looking at it, he uses his power to see that the gate is like a flea on the monkey, not the monkey itself. So, he chooses to kill the flea instead of hurting the monkey. He then adopts the monkey as his pet and names it Sonic because it's so fast. This makes Fempt angry, as he expected Leonardo to kill Sonic, which would have merged the demon's body. Later on, Steven, Klaus's right-hand man, worries about Leonardo being a part of the group because of his unique eyes, but Klaus assures him that they can manage the situation. After the incident, Leonardo still visits the diner, even though it's destroyed. He gets his usual order along with some dishwashing. As time passes, Leonardo starts learning more about the members of Libra. He figures out that Zap often tries to beat Klaus but never succeeds. He also notices that Chain, another member, isn't too fond of Zap or anyone else for that matter. Leonardo keeps his job as a delivery boy for Dejimo Pizza on the side. But it's weird because it seems like his only customer is Zap. Every time he delivers a pizza, Zap shows up and kind of bullies him into handing it over without paying. At the end of the day, while they're heading back to Libra, Leonardo spots a cleaning truck. His special eyes help him see that it's actually used by invisible demons to carry humans. When they realize they're being watched, they quickly get away. Zap calls Chain, but the demon catches up to them. It attacks them because it realizes Leonardo saw through their trick. The demon grabs Leonardo just as Zap manages to get some of his blood on him. This is so Chain can follow their trail. Inside the truck, Leonardo sees that the demons are transporting people as food, even though cannibalism is supposed to be forbidden. But the demon is mostly interested in his eyes. Zap gets taken to the hospital after the attack. The doctor is concerned because the blood they gave him disappears, and they can't figure out why. Steven figures out Zap's plan to track Leonardo, as a thread of blood stretches out from him. Meanwhile, Leonardo is trying to find a way to escape on his own. He uses his power to take over the demon's sight. He shows them Sonic, his pet monkey, instead of their actual path, which makes them really mad. But Leonardo keeps going because he wants to help himself, even though he's not very strong. The thought that he's part of Libra motivates him to mess with the demon's eyesight until they go crazy. Zap opens his eyes and ignites his blood. Chain starts following the burning thread of blood. Klaus and Steven also trail after Chain and manage to reach the truck. As soon as they arrive, they defeat the demons quickly. Later in the hospital, Leonardo is lying in bed, all wrapped up in bandages. Steven congratulates everyone for saving 19 missing people and discovering an illusion they didn't know existed. Steven wonders if Klaus assigned Zap to be Leonardo's bodyguard. Although Zap didn't like the idea at first, Klaus agreed. Leonardo finally figures out why Zap is always near him and wants to thank him. However, because Zap had tormented him and taken his pizzas, he decided not to say it to him. A few days go by, and Leonardo starts feeling better. He moves around the hospital and takes some photos. He comes across a cemetery, which he finds kind of creepy. A girl laughs and tells him that's why no one except her visits the cemetery. She knows his name and introduces herself as White, a ghost. Leonardo takes a photo of White and mentions that he can see her in the picture. White laughs but repeats that she's a ghost and playfully jumps at him. Later, he wakes up in his apartment and notices that half of his room and the hotel are gone. He sees a huge monster. The landlord comes in and explains that Leonardo's place has become a fancy hotel and a tourist spot because of the monster's appearance. The landlord hit the jackpot. Leonardo ends up sleeping at Libra's place. Steven asks Gilbert if they should pay Leonardo more, since he still has his other job and sends money home. Gilbert suggests it too, but Leonardo refuses to take more than the regular pay. Zap then comes in and sits on Leonardo's head. He talks about fighting someone who, even though they looked human, kept fighting even after being decapitated. Steven brings up a substance called the Angel Scale, which allows temporary changes to a person's body. He tells Chain and Zap to investigate it. Sonic, Leonardo's pet monkey, starts looking at Zap and moves his gaze downwards. Zap realizes Leonardo has stopped breathing and starts shaking him to wake up and not die. They work hard on investigating Angel Scale, but they don't find any solid leads. Klaus goes to meet Kay, another member of Libra, and they head to a mansion. Outside the mansion, Klaus meets Korsakov Volchenko, a grandmaster in chess and a player of a chess-like game called Prosphere. He wonders why Korsakov is there. Klaus suggests it might be safer for him to leave, but Korsakov corrects him, saying he's mistaken, and goes inside. As they enter the mansion, they're greeted by Don Arlalel, one of the top bosses in the Alter world. He summons a Prosphere game board, but Klaus interrupts him. He asks if Don Arlalel intends to play 2 Prosphere games today, and Don Arlalel confirms it. Klaus points out that Korsakov is one of humanity's greatest talents, and if he were to lose his mind, it would be a huge loss for their world. Korsakov stops Klaus and explains that he knows the risks and shouldn't assume he'll lose. Before entering a room with Don Arlalel, Klaus advises Korsakov not to try and checkmate him, although Korsakov doesn't quite understand what he means. They start playing the game, and Don Ariel asks Klaus for his second request. Klaus asks about where the angel scale comes from and how it's moved around. KK figures out that Don Ariel set up 2 games, knowing that Klaus would want to save Korsakov and that he would ask for a longer game in return. While they play, Don Ariel can't understand why Klaus would risk his life when the information he wants is so important. He reveals that Korsakov asked him to kill Klaus. However, Klaus explains that humans can be weak, and that's why they sometimes act in ways that might seem disrespectful to themselves. But it doesn't matter to him because no matter what challenges he faces, he'll stick to his way of living. Klaus manages to keep going for 99 hours, and in the end, Don Ariel tells him about Angel Scale and lets Korsakov go. KK quickly shares the information with Libra, and they take action, stopping the substance and raiding the places involved. Later on, Leonardo spends time with White. He shows her the pictures he's taken since she hasn't been able to leave the hospital for the past 3 years. While riding the train, Leonardo mentions that he's noticed some people emit light. Black, White's twin brother, tells him that 50% of the people in Hellsalem's lot are monsters, 20% are of an unknown type, and 25% are humans. Leonardo is curious about the remaining 5%, and Black explains that those can't be seen with regular eyes and are dangerous. Later, Libra is throwing a party, and they talk with Patrick, the craftsman of Libra. Klaus asks Leonardo how he's doing, and Leonardo shares that he saw someone with an incredibly bright crimson aura that looked like wings. Suddenly, everyone gathers around him, and the music stops. They ask him to confirm what he said and show him a red color, asking if it's similar to that. Zap tells Leonardo he saw a vampire. Klaus mentions they need to call a specialist, which disappoints everyone. But Steven adds that the specialist will come even if they don't call him. Leonardo asks Zap who they're talking about, but even Zap seems annoyed to answer at that moment. Later, Zap tells Leonardo about Blitz Abrams, also known as Lucky Abrams. He's a top vampire expert, and Klaus considers him a mentor. Zap mentions that being called Lucky isn't just about good luck, and right then, Blitz shows up. He calls Zap a monster and crashes into a truck, causing a commotion. A piece of glass hits Zap's forehead, and a metal piece hits Leonardo's head. They all head to the Libra office. Gilbert remarks that they knew Blitz was coming, surprising him because he hadn't told them. Gilbert explains that there was an incident at the airport, and everyone except Klaus figured out Blitz was on his way. Zap asks Leonardo if he understands now why Blitz has that nickname, and why everyone had such reactions when they heard about him. Leonardo nods in understanding. Blitz reveals a severed arm holding a piece of paper and explains its connection to the Elder 13. A powerful group of 13 eternal beings with incredible healing abilities and few weaknesses. He shares that they encountered them once before and suffered significant losses. He believes the piece of paper holds the real names of the people who are lost. Blitz asks Leonardo if he can use his unique eyes to read it. Leonardo attempts, but as he reads, he starts to see a burning flame and sparks. Blitz, Klaus, Zap, and Leonardo set off for the eternal nothingness. They reach the Igadashiad Central Station, positioned directly over the heart of Hellsalem's lot. Blitz explains their plan to search using Leonardo's eyes. He instructs Leonardo to close his eyes if he senses anything unusual, but also to close them at the last possible second. As Leonardo gazes into the hole, his eyes begin to crack, causing him harm. He tells Blitz that he saw more than just 13 things. Gilbert contacts Klaus, informing him that the FBI needs their assistance against Elder-class blood breeds. KK and Steven head to the station where the vampires are. They encounter ghouls created by the vampires, but manage to defeat them easily. Shane records KK and Steven's fight against the vampires and streams it to Klaus while they hurry back. Seeing KK and Steven struggling, Klaus becomes angry. Steven mentions that despite the time that passes, they will eventually overcome the vampires. But he also notes that even now, there's someone who can stand up against the vampires. Just then, a train passes by, and Klaus leaps from it. Using his technique, he defeats Tonio Andretti. He then approaches Valsrazo Valktavol Jirica, surprising her by knowing her name, and seals her. Leonardo considers the uncertainty of surviving today and what tomorrow may bring. However, he notices the auras of the Libra members burning, which makes him rethink his perspective. He realizes that there's a chance and that the future is unpredictable. While on the train, he remembers his conversation with Black. He had asked Black if he could also see the remaining 5%, to which Black responded that Leonardo might be onto something. Black asks Leonardo to guess what he is and that he already knows Black's name. Leonardo goes to visit White, but she's not in her room. He goes to the cemetery and urges her to return since everyone is searching for her. However, she refuses. Black contacts Fempt, informing him that it's his friend on the line, the King of Despair. White is upset, and Leonardo can't figure out why or if he's the cause of it. Zap notices that Leonardo is troubled and suggests they grab something to eat. Leonardo explained that they would be late for their meeting. As they argue between eating and attending the meeting, a massive monster machine destroys a large truck and starts pursuing them. Klaus and Blitz go to see Dog Hummer, who greets them after not seeing them for a while. As they release him, Blitz informs Dog that Allegra, the one who harmed him before, has returned. Dog has no memory of who that is, but then Deldro emerges from Dog's body and asks if it's true. Blitz confirms and mentions that she probably wants to capture them again. Meanwhile, Leonardo falls from his scooter and gets caught on the side of the truck, where Allegra finds him. Allegra captures Leonardo and boasts about her boyfriend's coolness. However, she thought he could use a better appearance, so she found a very handsome man and decided to merge them. She transformed Deldro into blood and replaced Dog's blood with Deldro's, but Klaus rescued him from her. Leonardo wonders if she plans to use him as a hostage or to tap into his power, but Allegra explains she intends to regain her boyfriend using her own abilities. Klaus arrives with Dog and Brody. Seeing Allegra triggers Dog's memories of the experiments she conducted. Dog jumps at her monster truck, summoning Brody around him, and tries to punch the truck. However, the truck is too tough, and he only manages to halt it, sending himself flying in the process. Allegra starts asking Leonardo about his romantic interests, but she finds him uninteresting as he struggles to respond. When her monster truck reactivates, she once again targets Dog and Deldro. Sonic secretly places a communication device with Leonardo, and Steven contacts him with a plan to destroy the truck he's trapped in. They want Leonardo to take control and steer it toward them. Leonardo follows their guidance, causing the truck to change its course. KK eliminates the monsters guarding the truck, and Steven freezes its tires, stopping it from gaining speed. Klaus propels the truck into the air, and Dog and Deldro get ready to deliver powerful punches. Dog realizes their initial approach won't work and instructs Deldro to concentrate all his blood into a strong punch. Although Deldro is concerned about the risk to Dog, he eventually agrees and gathers his blood into his fists. Just as the monster truck is about to collide with them, Dog and Deldro deliver a mighty punch, managing to destroy the truck and send it soaring. As it flies, metal fragments rain down, causing significant harm and destruction in the area. Chain catches the falling Leonardo, and they both land safely in a net created by Zap's blood. Afterward, in the hospital, Leonardo spots White and tries to avoid her. However, when he's ready to leave, Sonic refuses to go with him. Irritated, Leonardo changes his mind and approaches White. He invites her to watch a movie, and they sneak out to see a comedy. However, after the movie, White starts crying. Leonardo apologizes and admits that the movie brought back memories of his family, making him feel like a burden to his sister due to the troubles he causes. White reassures him, saying he's a good person, and she moves closer to him, offering a comforting hug. Leonardo buys some burgers. While he's about to cross the street, he witnesses someone being hit by a truck. He rushes to check on them, but the person seems fine. They explain that their skeleton is different from humans and keep asking Leonardo for a burger. The truck drivers, Martin and Roger, come out and express frustration about his risky street crossing. Seeing that the person is alright and not wanting to make things worse, Roger gives them his half-eaten burger, which the person, named Nej, happily accepts. Later, Leonardo goes to the Libra office, where Zap is waiting for him to bring the burgers. Zap starts eating the burgers and mentions that most burger chains withdrew from the city after the Great Collapse. Leonardo notices that the burger wraps no longer have images on them, and Zap explains it's because they don't like seeing people from the outside enjoying their food. He also shares that those from the Alter world are often seen as monsters. Leonardo has a similar conversation with White. She also comments on the challenges of different species understanding one another. Later on, Leonardo encounters Nej once more, this time accompanied by Martin and Roger. However, they charge Nej a much higher price for the burgers. As they leave, Leonardo points out to Nej that the money he paid could have gotten him 16 burgers, but Nej explains that he can't buy them on his own and struggles to find humans willing to purchase them for him. Feeling sympathetic, Leonardo decides to start buying burgers for Nej without charging him extra. They spend several days enjoying burgers together, and eventually, their conversation turns to their mothers. Nej reveals that neither he nor his mother have any memories of each other. Martin and Roger find themselves in trouble again. During an altercation, Roger becomes extremely agitated and attacks Nedge. As he continues to strike Nedge, Martin tries to intervene, but Nedge emits spores that cause everyone around him to collapse. Martin, wearing a gas mask to protect himself, carries Roger away from the scene. The next day, Leonardo waits for Nedge, but he doesn't show up. Meanwhile, Martin realizes that Roger has lost his memory. Shane informs Steven about an incident from the previous night involving a widespread fainting episode and collective amnesia, with people unable to remember the past 13 hours. Leonardo overhears their conversation and becomes concerned that Nedge might have been responsible for the recent amnesia incident. He searches for Nedge and eventually finds him. But to his surprise, Nedge doesn't remember what happened in the past few hours either. Suddenly, Martin appears and knocks out Leonardo, kidnapping both him and Nedge. Martin, along with Roger, has restrained Leonardo and Nedge. He explains that when Nedge turns red, he releases spores that induce memory loss in people. Martin sees this as an opportunity to use the spores to his advantage and make some money. He begins to beat Nedge, hoping to trigger the spore release. Nedge starts to turn red, and Leonardo regains consciousness just in time to confirm Martin's claim about the spores. As Martin and Roger continue to assault Nedge, Leonardo intervenes using his eyes to stop them. However, this action angers Martin, leading him to strike Leonardo with a bat. Witnessing this, Nedge becomes furious, turns red, and releases a large number of spores. The spores cause a widespread amnesia incident, causing people to forget the events of the past 2 weeks. Leonardo is released from the hospital and decides to have some burgers. He notices that he ordered 2 burgers and becomes emotional as he recalls the memories he shared with Nedge. As he contemplates this, Nedge suddenly appears and is hit by a truck, but he miraculously remains unharmed. Nedge asks Leonardo for a burger, and although Leonardo feels like they've been in this situation before, he offers him his burger. Later, Leonardo visits White in the hospital and notices a boy who seems familiar. White introduces him as her big brother, Black, and Leonardo realizes that he has seen Black before in the subway. Leonardo and Black have lunch together, and during their conversation, Leonardo learns that White's illness is related to her heart condition. He feels guilty for taking her out to a movie as it might have put unnecessary strain on her. During their time together, Vivian accidentally spills coffee, but Black's powers stop it in midair. They are both surprised by this phenomenon, but the coffee eventually falls on Leonardo. Black apologizes and explains that he possesses psi powers but isn't able to control them completely. When Leonardo arrives at Libra, he's surprised not to see Zap engaged in his usual attempts to provoke Klaus. However, Zap calls Leonardo and urgently requests Klaus's assistance, revealing that he has been taken hostage and is in danger. As the call ends abruptly, Zap warns that the most fearsome guests have arrived. When Klaus arrives at the scene, he confronts Osmaldo about a debt and the situation at hand. Klaus and Leonardo are both surprised when they arrive at an underground arena, and the crowd pushes Klaus into the ring. The announcer introduces Klaus and explains the rules: no weapons and one-on-one fights. They mention that if Klaus does well, he might get to see Zap. Gregor Maximus steps into the ring to face Klaus, but just as the fight begins, Jugglenos, a Beyondian, knocks out Gregor. Zap calls for a doctor, but Osmaldo assures him that Jugglenos is skilled and won't fatally harm Klaus. Zap agrees, but he's concerned that Klaus might unintentionally harm Jugglenos. Despite the doubts, Klaus defeats Jugglenos quite easily, not even giving him a chance to fight back. This excites the crowd and Osmaldo even more, and Klaus is told he has to keep fighting. Meanwhile, Leonardo attempts to sneak around but encounters Gregor, who realizes that Leonardo is connected to Klaus and Zap, leading Leonardo to suspect that Zap might be involved in this setup. Gregor reassures Leonardo that the people aren't here for violence, but for the love of bare-knuckle fighting. Klaus continues to win against opponent after opponent. Zap begins to wonder if Osmaldo is satisfied with the fights, but his thoughts are interrupted when Osmaldo himself enters the ring, showing his intention to fight Klaus. The announcer explains that if the owner challenges a fighter, it means the ownership of the arena is on the line. The fight between Klaus and Osmaldo begins, and Osmaldo seems to be impressed by Klaus's skills. However, the situation takes an unexpected turn when Klaus switches to a different form and delivers a powerful punch to Osmaldo. This punch causes Osmaldo's head to explode, revealing a blood breed hidden within him. The blood breed clarifies that he didn't actually kill Osmaldo, he was merely using his body as a vessel. He taunts Klaus, mentioning that he enjoyed playing with him before throwing him against the fence and swiftly vanishing. Zapp expresses his gratitude to Klaus for saving him and claims that the adversaries fled once they witnessed Klaus's combat prowess. Leonardo becomes frustrated by Zapp's dishonesty and threatens to reveal the truth, but Zapp clarifies that Klaus is currently fatigued after his intense battles. Zapp takes this as an opportunity to defeat Klaus, but his attempt ends in another defeat at Klaus's hands. Later on, Leonardo encounters Black and offers him a ride. During their conversation, they discuss Halloween, and Black explains that in his world, there are no candies, but Halloween is believed to be a time when the dead and spirits come forth. As Leonardo drops Black off, Black enters a room where Femt and others are present. He casually mentions that he's up next, eliciting a chorus of boos from the crowd. Leonardo and Black watch a video explaining the history of the Great Collapse and how casters from both worlds united their efforts to halt the catastrophe. Meanwhile, Zapp spends his days engaged in activities like pursuing women, gambling, and indulging in fast food. His attention is captivated by a beautiful woman employed at a food establishment, and he persistently visits her, eventually overeating to an excessive degree. The woman recognizes Chain and confides in her about a man who is bothering her. She seeks advice on handling the situation. As the woman discusses the harassment issue in Zapp's presence, an argument erupts between Zapp and Chain. In the midst of this, Steven receives a distressing call regarding a bloodgate that has materialized in India, resulting in half of a blood breed emerging in Hellsalem's lot. The team promptly embarks on a mission to confront the blood breed, who is engaged in combat with an unidentified man. Amidst the chaos, KK and Steven recognize the blood breed's identity and engage in battle against him. Meanwhile, Zapp finds himself intimidated by the mysterious man, who refers to him as Master. The conflict escalates until the blood breed is forced to adopt its final form known as the true womb egg. The enigmatic man, Master Raju Jujei Shizayoshi, employs his skills to neutralize the blood breed, revealing his mastery over various techniques. Raju expresses disappointment in the team, particularly Zapp, his disciple. He voices his intention to reclaim Zapp, despite the team's protestations that they require him. Raju presents Zapp with a test to pacify the true womb egg by simultaneously striking all 6 of its eyes. Enclosed within a barrier, Zapp grapples with the challenge. Chain assists by orchestrating a conversation between Zapp and the woman he admires, prompting him to focus and successfully accomplish the task. Raju acknowledges Zapp's achievement, even comparing his concentration to his own when asleep. Black inquires about White's meeting with Leonardo, leading to a discrepancy between their accounts. Black wonders if he truly encountered Leonardo in a subway, but White dismisses his doubts. Meanwhile, Leonardo attempts to use his eyes on the blood breed, but his efforts fall short of discerning its true name, hindering their ability to seal it. Raju's efforts to communicate prove futile due to his missing heart. The whereabouts of the blood breed's other half remains a mystery, and Raju hints at the arrival of his junior disciple. In a different setting, Black confronts the King of Despair at their parents' grave, expressing his discontent with the King's involvement with White. The King of Despair defends his actions, asserting that White's choices are made willingly, and he then takes control of Black's body. Raju explains that his new disciple is the rightful heir of the Shinto branch of the Big Dipper-style blood technique, while Zapp represents the Kagutsuchi branch. Raju mentions that if Zapp were stronger, there wouldn't have been a need to divide the two styles. Zapp clarifies that it's not humanly possible to master both styles simultaneously. The upper half of the blood breed is situated at the front of an airplane being flown by Raju's disciple. However, as the plane arrives in Hellsalem's lot, a creature demolishes it. Dog Hummer and Deldro Brody seize the front part of the plane and crash it into a building. Klaus, Zapp, and Leonardo swiftly approach the scene to confront the situation. Meanwhile, Leonardo makes an effort to acquire the blood breed's complete name. Once he succeeds in obtaining it, he passes the name to Klaus. Dog and Deldro then grasp Leonardo, leaping off the building. While descending, Leonardo notices an unusual light, which subsequently detonates. Zapp aims to aid the other disciple, but he unlatches the plane on his own. Zapp finds this unexpected and chuckles, amused by the discovery of the half-human, half-fish individual. Zed, the other disciple, perceives Zapp's attitude as disrespectful. As they prepare to combat the blood breed, Zed recognizes that he is the counterpart disciple of Raju. Even though the blood breed manages to reunite with its other half, Zapp and Zed comprehend their duty. They confront their master, allowing Klaus the chance to seal him. Raju commends them, despite commenting on their subpar expertise in dealing with blood breeds. Raju decides to entrust Zed to them before departing without granting Zed an opportunity to speak. Exhausted and shocked by the revelation, Zed collapses. Meanwhile, King of Despair, Femt, and Aligura engage in discussions about the king's plans. Ultimately, Aligura hands over a device to the King of Despair, arousing his excitement. White's health deteriorates, and she recalls the incident when the King of Despair entered Black's body. Upon waking up in her room, she finds the King of Despair present, who offers her the device and proposes a deal. She must take Leonardo's eyes in exchange for her brother's return. White reminisces about a time when she and her father decided to call each other Black and White. Leonardo, Zap, and Zed are about to enjoy some burgers at Vivian's place when something suddenly falls onto the building. Zed quickly moves to shield Leonardo and Vivian, saving them, while Zap stops a rock from crushing Zed. He tells Zed not to cause him trouble, and Zed apologizes and expresses gratitude for saving his life, which surprises Zap. He steps outside to investigate and witnesses Klaus fighting multiple enemies, requesting their assistance. Earlier, Leonardo invited Zap and Zed to join him for a meal. At first, Zap hesitates about bringing Zed along due to his fishy odor, but he ultimately decides to come. They end up in a sushi restaurant, where Zap teases Zed for not minding the cannibalism of eating fish. They then visit a restaurant where the food is prepared in an unusual way, and Zed is okay with that too. Despite Leonardo's protests, the trio visits even more unconventional places to eat. Leonardo becomes frustrated and questions why they can't go somewhere normal, leading Zap to snap and remark that Zed secretly enjoys watching Leonardo's reactions. Daniel Law informs Klaus and Steven about the 1000 Rigioka brothers, a rising mafia group armed with 1,000 powered suits. He asks for Libra's assistance, but Steven worries that they might end up arrested by Daniel himself. However, he realizes that this could attract attention from other troublemakers and people with sharp ears. Blitz contacts Klaus and Steven, arranging a meeting with the League of High Order Spirituals. This organization comprises casters who helped raise the barrier that stopped the Great Collapse. They meet Angelica and Elder, who arrives late and apologizes. Meanwhile, Steven receives a call from Daniel with information about the powered suits. The hungry trio, Leonardo, Zap, and Zed, finally decide to dine at a fancy restaurant, but their meal is interrupted by a lover's quarrel that escalates into a fight. Food and blood are splattered on them, leaving them unable to eat. They then head to Vivian's place for a meal, but it's destroyed by the 1000 Rigioka brothers, leading to a battle. Afterward, they visit the sushi restaurant they initially rejected, where Zap falls ill from the tuna and ends up in the hospital. Elder explains to Blitz that one of the barriers protecting the city was damaged during a confrontation with a blood breed. He shares that after raising the barrier 3 years ago, they lost track of someone important and that a caster couple overseeing the barrier had died, leaving their children behind. One of those children is now part of the League. In another scene, the King of Despair encounters a woman running from pursuers. He offers a twisted deal, leading to a shocking result. Back at the hospital, White's behavior puzzles Leonardo and Zed. They find her in the chapel, praying for Leonardo's well-being. The King of Despair then appears, questioning her intentions and asking for Leonardo's all-seeing eyes of the god. White reminisces about her past with her father, Benjamin Macbeth, and mother, Emma Macbeth. Despite coming from a lineage of casters, White lacks psychic abilities, while her twin brother, Black, seems to possess strong powers. However, he avoids using them due to incidents where his powers accidentally manifest when he cries. Benjamin mentions that it's not obligatory for them to be casters, and he brings up a significant event involving Black's decision not to become a caster. White interrupts her father before he can elaborate on it, and Black arrives, preventing the reveal. White's interests led her to photography. When some boys take her camera, Black retrieves it from the river after they throw it off a bridge, nearly drowning in the process. While Black was in the hospital, White assured him that the camera wasn't important and that he should utilize his powers and not put his life at risk. Black shares a memory of White creating a perfect mud ball, but he breaks it out of jealousy, unintentionally suppressing her powers. White quietly crafts another one without expressing her disappointment, leaving Black feeling excluded. In response, he decides to grow stronger independently and avoid using his powers until he achieves his goal. Their shared laughter shows their close bond. Encouraged by White, Black starts training to become a caster. At the chapel, White apologizes to Leonardo, and the King of Despair harnesses Black's psychic abilities to control Leonardo. White reveals that she needs Leonardo to help her retrieve Black and entrusts him with a device that renders his eyes unusable. The King of Despair transports Leonardo to a different location, where he employs a magic circle to harness Leonardo's powers. He informs Leonardo that White isn't fully human, surviving due to a heart replacement barrier created by her parents. Back at the chapel, the King of Despair shoots White in the heart. In a separate location, Fempt observes the chaos, noting the onset of the second collapse. Fempt gives Leonardo a smack to check if he's alive, and Leonardo claims he's dead. Zap and Zed are searching for Leonardo. Steven updates Klaus about the League's plans to repair the barrier, and their search for the final member. The Elder from the League reveals that the barrier isn't fully destroyed and the last person, Mary Macbeth, possesses the remaining part. Fempt informs Leonardo that he's not a friend of the container Black, but knows who's within. When Leonardo expresses curiosity, Fempt proposes a coin game. If Leonardo wins, Fempt will answer his questions. If he loses, he'll stay put. Leonardo seems relieved when he refuses, which irritates Fempt and prompts him to beat Leonardo. Failing to reach an agreement, Fempt leaves for the chapel to meet with the King of Despair. Meanwhile, Leonardo tries to escape. The King of Despair and Fempt discuss their plans, mentioning the concept of nonsense. Libra learns of Leonardo's whereabouts, and Zap and Zed rush to find him. The King of Despair comments on the absurdity of their existence, just as the cityscape shifts and flying buildings appear. Animal-headed zombies attack and Libra members start battling them. Leonardo manages to flee with Sonic's help, receiving a camera that contains a recording from White. In the message, White asks Sonic to save Leonardo. Realizing that White isn't human but a barrier, Leonardo sets out to locate her. On his way, he encounters various challenges, including meteors caused by Blitz's luck manipulation. Leonardo understands that White is a barrier and that he must reach her quickly. While trying to ascend a newly formed tower, Dog, Hummer, and Deldro Brody toss Leonardo upwards. Chain momentarily grabs him, and Zed uses his abilities to cushion his landing. Klaus reaches to top and sees the King of Despair, who tells him that he isn't waiting for Klaus, but Klaus also tells him he isn't there for him, but for William. As he wonders where he is, King of Despair uses Black's powers and attempts to injure himself, telling Klaus it's a game and he must protect him from himself. Leonardo is assisted by Steven and KK, who kill the zombies and clear his path. One of Leonardo's eyes cracks and he starts to panic. As he is surrounded by zombies, Zap comes in and kills them, but burns Leonardo a bit, which annoys him, and he punches Zap. Leonardo wonders if he can continue with one eye, but Zap encourages him, saying that as lost as he has will, he can. Gilbert comes with the car and Leonardo continues towards the top. Meanwhile, Klaus and the King of Despair started fighting. He manages to knock Klaus down and tells him that he didn't choose William, but William accepted him and that he had the same look in his eyes as Klaus. So he is sure that even if he dies, his next self will revive him. Leonardo reaches them, saying that he doesn't like that because it's not a reason for someone to die. King of Despair wonders if Leonardo will kill him with his eyes, but Leonardo tells him he doesn't know if that's the right thing or not and will keep thinking about it until he does, and the next time they meet, he will try giving him a better answer. Using his eyes, he sees Black inside, who says he doesn't want to die. Leonardo then yells to White, telling her that if she takes one step towards the light, her soul will never be beaten and to not give up. A bit later, White opens her eyes and sees Black and then Leonardo. Leonardo tells her he knows what she is, and that Black wants to live, and that if she is scared of the light, he will hold her hand and lead her as many times as she needs. Leonardo then headbutts the King of Despair and uses his power, sharing his vision and causing him to see White. Moments later, Black regains consciousness and tells White that the world will collapse one day, so why not now? But White tells him to not lie. Black cries and says that he is scared and that for him a world without her is no world at all. But White tells him that even without her, the world will continue to exist and that he must live. Black hugs her and tells her that he doesn't have enough strength left to recover and stabilize her, so he will use the strength left in her body to re-establish a new barrier. As he does, White disappears. Klaus congratulates Leonardo on what he did and comments that he saved them and that he is proud of him. If this hits 10,000 likes, you will get part 2. Watch this next video. See you on the next one.